In this section you can change the shortcut keys used for individual screens. By default, when you want to capture a new inbox item, you can use the shortcut key I to add an inbox item, the shortcut key P to add a new project, and so on. Here you can change the individual values for any of these if you want to introduce a new item. For example, if you want a shortcut for processing inbox items, we can set that to the letter Y. Then when we press shortcut key Y, we'll go to the screen to process our inbox items. The screen that allows you to view actions by space context can appear in two formats. You can either list all actions separated by space context, or only the next actions separated by space context. And this config value allows you to toggle between all actions and only display next actions in that screen. When you create an item, by default you'll have an option of what you see on the next screen. When you create an inbox item, the default is to create another inbox item. When you create an action, the default is to view the parent item, and so on. Here you can change those default next screens for each item type, and the next screen might be view parent, view item, list all items, create another. In the orphans screen, by default it won't show you items as orphans if they're values, visions, roles, goals or projects. If you want gtd-php to flag up which projects are orphans, then just remove P from the list. If you want to see all items that are orphans wherever they are in the hierarchy, then you can just trim this down to I and M, which means it will only suppress inbox item and values as orphans. And that's because those items are always orphans. Values are at the top of the hierarchy, so there's nothing that can appear above them, and inbox items by default don't yet belong to any project. In the weekly review screen, you can choose whether to display the box where it lists all those projects for which you haven't yet entered desired outcomes. By default, those projects will be listed. And it's a key element of the Getting Things Done philosophy that you do enter an outcome for each project, so you know exactly what wild success for each project would look like. You can also choose whether to display the 7 habits of highly effective people in the weekly review. By default that's switched off, and if you want, you can set that to true. You can also add an array of elements which will customize the weekly review and add your own elements onto that review so that it gives you a prompt each week to do these actions. The sort array allows you to customize the order in which items are displayed in lists. This is quite an advanced setting. We recommend you keep the default settings for now. In the wiki there is a sort cookbook which will give you variations on these if you want to modify the order in which items are displayed. By default, when you've got recurring actions, when you complete a recurring action, a new action will be created. gtd-php will store the completed item and create a new item in addition to it. If you want to remove the completed items once they're done and only use the most recent recurrence, the one that's outstanding, then set store recurrences to false. In 0.8 we've introduced a new option that time contexts can be set for different types differently. So you'd have one set of time context for actions, another set of time contexts that apply only to projects, and so on. By default that's switched off, and you can set that to on by setting this to true. This string of garbage characters is used by MySQL as field separators, and we recommend that you don't change this unless specifically instructed to by a developer when you're trying to fix a particular bug. By default, gtd-php version 0.8 will show you different fields for different types of item. For example, for actions, it'll show you the next action field and the titler, the context, the space context, the time context. For roles and goals, a lot of these fields will be suppressed because they're not directly relevant within the GTD system to those project item types. If you want to see all fields for all items, whatever the type, you can set this config value to true. Now, there may be times when you need to change items from actions to projects and so on. You can either create a new project and copy over the action title and description, or you can change the type of that item. Changing the type of that item will sever all of the connections between parents and children. So, by default, we disable the package from allowing users to change the type of items. If you want to have that option on all the time, then set allow changing types to true. If you want to change the default character set used by the package, set the config charset value. By default it's set to West European. At the moment, gtd-php only supports single byte character sets. That is, it doesn't support UTF-8 and other multi-byte character sets. When you submit a bug report, by default the package will also report what version of PHP and MySQL you are using. That really helps us fix the bugs, identify what the problem is. If you'd rather not send that information when you submit a bug report from the help menu, then tell the config to withhold version info when you submit a bug report. Finally, there are a couple of debug options. You'll need to keep these as they are in the template unless we ask you to change these when you're helping us to step through a debugging procedure to find a bug that you've reported. Once you've made the changes, you can save the config file and fire up gtd-php.